and welcome to Radio MVP's debut of One on One with Tim Continenza. My special guest today is Eric Danis, or Eric Danis. We're going to get that exactly first right off the bat, because I've heard it pronounced a lot of different ways. And, you know, when I used to watch it, or I should say, listen on Poker News, when I first met you, in a sense, because this is the first time we actually ever talked, it was Danis. And then as time went by, I've heard Denis and I've heard Danis. And I'm like, okay, I don't know exactly the correct pronunciation. So start with, Eric, how do we pronounce your last name?
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me on. I mean, officially it's Denis. That's the French, pronunciation. I am French Canadian after all, but that also explains why people have butchered my name. I just am too polite to correct them. So that tends to happen as well. But it's just basically, it doesn't matter, because even in French Canada, we butcher it even when speaking in French. So the correct pronunciation is not even used in my neck of the woods. So I just let it slide from time to time. And then, as you mentioned on Poker News, my friend Rich, I was with French Canadian friends in Vegas, and he heard people call me by my last name and was confused by the pronunciation. So that's how he decided to switch to Denis, and it's stuck since. So, but whatever works. I'll go by Eric, and whatever you want to call me is fine by me.
I understand. My last name is Continenza, and everyone always he says, that's a lot of vowels. And I says, yes, it is. And in Northeast Ohio, there's quite a few of us who have a lot of vowels in their name. So I understand. And I've always had that. Well, let's put it this way. I've covered a lot of high school sports in my lifetime, and especially over the last 25 years. And there's nothing worse than a mother yelling at you because you did not pronounce the name the way they pronounce it. And you're like, okay, I apologize. You know, I'll never forget. I'm in a small little booth, and it's about 80 degrees. It's early summer. And this woman comes up to me. She goes, my son's name is Gutierrez, not Gutierrez. Oh, okay. No problem. I got it. From this point on, he is Gutierrez.
Right.
So, you know, it happens all the time. And that's why I've always, in long term, learned, just ask.
Yeah.
What the heck? What's the worst thing to do? Not find out?
To be fair, in that case, that's a little unfair to you, because I'm sort of a stickler with names, and being a French Canadian and being a hockey guy, it was always, when I was younger, always wanted to make sure I had the right pronunciation. I used to do announcing at hockey games, and I'm a stickler for that. But when it comes to Gutierrez, that's a little unfair that it's pronounced differently. So I think you're doing the right thing there, but it just so happens that they changed it along the way.
Hey, you never know how this is going to be. Yeah. Well, anyways, let me backtrack and introduce everybody to Eric here. Eric is the editor and I think heads stats guy for the GPI, which is known as the Global Poker Index. And just take a moment and let my listeners who probably are not familiar with the GPI, what is it and how this ranking becomes about?
Yeah, in poker, Tim, the teams have become so much smaller that basically whatever you want to give me for a title, I'll take. We tend to do a lot of things. The GPI is basically, if you're a tennis fan, it's the ATP of tennis. If you're a golf fan, it's the World Golf Rankings of golf. Basically ranks players and based on their performances on the live tournament circuits. It doesn't look at online, just live. And live tournaments, obviously, not cash games, because we let them have their privacy there. But when it comes to tournaments, those results are readily available. We get them registered to us on the Hendenbob database. Not a big fan of the name, but hey, it came from England, and the word mob is a bit more accepted in England than it is anywhere else in the world. So we take that data and translate it into basically rankings, and we've been doing it for over 5 years now. It'll be our 6th year this July. And things are great. I mean, basically there's two systems. There's a system that looks at the best player in the world at this moment, that looks at your last 3 years of statistics, performance based by 6-month segments. And then there's a player of the year, which tends to be a bit more popular because people just like that race in December. And as we saw last year, we had some zaniness where the actually last major term of the year, we had a change in the POI. So it gets to be exciting in poker compared to other sports because there's literally 100 tournaments a week, whereas in tennis or in golf, there's about 100 a year. So there's a lot of different elements to our business compared to theirs.
Oh, there's no question about that. One of I think the toughest things to do is, and you mentioned how you keep track of it, but it's just, there's thousands of tournaments really throughout the world. I mean, unlike the PGA or even the tennis world, like you said, they have a season. When the Australian Open is, when the US Open is, in tennis, and same with golf. When the majors come about and the season ends, in October, and they may have sporadic tournaments after that, but there's a season. Poker, there really is no true season. It's year round.
Yeah.
Does that make it more difficult to keep track? Or, because we're coming into what a lot of people would call the tournament season, with the World Series of Poker coming up here in Las Vegas here, coming at the end of this month and going all the way through mid-July.
Yeah, there's a few tournaments. The WPT just had their World Championship. We have the now Poker Stars Championships that had their huge tournament in Monte Carlo, that big series there. And as you mentioned, the WSOP is coming right about a few weeks from now. To me, this is the most exciting part of the year. It always starts with the WPT, then the Poker Stars Championship, and then the World Series is its own beast. Basically, it's its own season. If you had to look at different seasons in poker, the World Series is 6 weeks of daily tournaments, and it's a lot of stress on the players and does burn a lot of the players out. So that's why there's a little lull. It's probably the only time of the year where you'll see a little calm before the August and September storm. So a lot of poker up for the players, and it is a challenge. There's a few of us that are sort of obsessed and sticklers that, you'll find me on a Sunday night looking at tournament results from the Christchurch Casino in New Zealand, just trying to find someone that I can talk to, because we need to find out who won that tournament. So, just some odd things like that, where if everything was reported, it'd be great, and most of the series are, but we always want to make sure to find every tournament around the world. So you'll see me looking for tournaments in Johannesburg or New Zealand or anywhere else around the world, trying to make sure that every single result is in our system, because everyone can be ranked. So, and there's also national rankings. That's important to people as well. So we really are obsessed with making sure that all the results are entered in our system as soon as possible.
Me being a Northeast Ohio guy who grew up with high school football and football rankings, it's all a huge thing. And you're talking about finding results in that. And in Ohio, unlike a lot of other states, we have a ranking system that is computer based for the playoffs. So and there's actually now 7 divisions. In each division, you get, 16 or 8 teams, or I should say 4 regions with 8 teams each making it. So, or 4 teams making it. So, in a long range story I'm trying to tell you is there's a ranking system where if Team A is a Division I team and defeats a Division III team, which is a smaller school, they don't get as many points as they would have if they beat a Division I school.
Right.
And it goes both ways. If a Division III happened to beat a Division I, they would get more points because they played up in division and succeeded. And they only count the wins. They don't count the losses, but you have to have the entire schedule for every team. And some of these schools, it's tough to get the accurate score for throughout the state. So, there's times where they're getting down to the last week of the playoffs and they're scrambling to get the result of a team who may have played a Canadian team. And it matters what that Canadian team did the rest of the year, because they have secondary points, which are points that accumulate by their wins throughout the season. So, if you had a team, let's just say from Ottawa, that came down to the United States and played someone in Ohio, and they maybe play 7 or 8 games the entire year, but you have to find out exactly who they played and then turn it into what it would be equivalent to enrollment to an Ohio school. So I understand that idea that you got to find, the smallest or the most important little detail to get these rankings. And it's an amazing thing what you guys do, because I've been watching it for the last few years and obviously learned about it on Poker News, like I mentioned, when you and Rich were doing the podcast, and it was fun. It was a great time to learn more about the players, because I think poker is the toughest thing to understand, because players come and go.
You're right.
And in the same vein, sometimes it's just maybe they've taken a break. Sometimes it's just they haven't had much success. So,
Yeah,
you know, you might see someone pop up that was 3-4 years ago, or even 7 or 8 years ago, all of a sudden have a tournament result.
It's always portrayed, or I guess people from the outside look at it as a glamorous life. And don't get me wrong, there's some people, some players that are living extraordinary lives because of poker. But for the most part, it is really a difficult day-to-day job. You have to, to grind the casino circuit. And, if you're an American circuit grinder, I'm thinking of guys like Alan Kessler or Ari Engel, who's, probably the best grinder in the world,
Right.
now ranked in our top, I'll get it wrong, definitely in the top 20, but close to the top 10. And that's incredible for someone like Ari that doesn't play the high rollers or the super high rollers. He's just grinding every week. You'll see him go from Tunica to Los Angeles to Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like, for those guys, it sounds fun, and it is a fun life. Don't get me wrong. They don't have alarm clocks. They can decide to take a day off if they want. But it's quite a task. Only a few can really master it for so many years. Guys like Ari and Alan, who are now, I guess, the best of the grinders. But for a lot of people, after a year or two, the grind is really long, and they just can't do it. And if you have a couple of bad months, well, that's it for you. You're not getting paid. You're not getting sponsored for the most part. So it's a very challenging and it's a rough life. And you see it at the World Series. And Tim, I don't know if you've ever been to the World Series, but the World Series starts everyone. It's like the start of school. Everyone is so excited to be in Las Vegas. It's beautiful outside. It's in the hundreds. Everyone is excited. A few weeks in, you can tell some of the guys and girls are getting tired. And by the end of it, people are really excited to leave Las Vegas, unless they're doing well in the main event, and then they're excited. But for the 10 other thousand people there, they just want to leave, because it is a rough life. And I think that's part of the, something that if ever I can be lucky enough to do a documentary one day, I think it would be to show that part as well. As sure, it is glamorous. And hey, we just had a good old Quebec boy from Canada just won $1 million yesterday in Montreal, from a $5,000 buy-in tournament. That's fantastic.
Right.
But Mr. Savard had basically 3 catches all year, and he's been, he's a good online grinder, but live, he hadn't picked up a lot of scores. So, it's really challenging. Again, you don't get paid a salary, so if you're not doing so well, boy, it really starts to hurt the pocketbook, and it really just drains you emotionally.
There's no doubt about it. It's interesting. There's no doubt about it. No, I've never been to the World Series. Maybe I'll get my chance to get out there. My goal, but it's something that's evaded me the last couple of years, is to get out to Reno for Run It Up Reno. And
very nice.
Jason, Somerville. I'm a big fan of his. I've been fortunate. I found him online about 3-4 years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, when he was just doing the YouTube videos, and have been following him ever since. And I keep threatening him that I'm going to get out there one day, but I haven't made it yet. But I'm going to try, and it'll be just, I've never played in a tournament that big. I play in local tournaments, which we have. Matter of fact, I'll give the little plug right now. We have a little poker scene here in Northeast Ohio, in the Youngstown, Mahoning Valley area, and it is a community foundation, the West Pennsylvania and East Ohio, a nonprofit organization that presents No Limit Texas Hold'em tournaments almost every weekend, as we have tournaments 2 times a day. Sometimes it's up to 3 or 4 days in a row. This week they're going to be Friday and Saturday, May 12th and 13th, over at the American Legions in Girard, Ohio. Tony Potts is the man who runs it, and he does a great job. And the buy-ins are only $60. The good news is $5 goes towards a bounty chip, so you can make some money if you can bust some people. And we also have a point system where they do quarterly free roll, and that quarterly free roll usually runs for about a 5K prize pool, so it's not too shabby. As they do that as for a small little buy-in. I think the 20 people who qualify for it through the points, and then he does a raffle for 15 more, and push you into this tournament for an opportunity to for a free roll. Because what he does, he takes $5 out of every entry for the bounty, and $5 for for the prize pool later. So it's not a bad system he's come up with. And they also do cash games. 1-2 cash games starts at 9 a.m. most days and plays until the game breaks. Sometimes it goes 24, 48, 72 hours without a break. But they have a splash pot at 9 o'clock every morning, and that splash pot is an extra $100 value on that one hand. So
I like it.
There's my little plug for the tournaments here locally. And it's not bad little gig we got going on here.
Yeah, to be honest, and that's what I miss the most from living this life. It is, and even I shouldn't even say that, because even when I was in Ottawa, that tournament poker scene has really gone down. But I miss those tournaments where you can just have a lot of fun and try to make a few bucks too. Where when you're playing a tournament in Vegas, no matter what the buy-in, you're going to be playing with players that are serious players or just in Vegas to play some tournaments where, it's a bit more competition and maybe not as fun as it would be, hanging out with some friends and stuff. So I do miss that a lot. And again, not to bash a wonderful tournament at Aria, for example, but to me, I sort of, miss the days of playing for fun and having just a good time.
If you ever make a trip down to Northeast Ohio area, you're more than welcome to stop by and play and have some fun. And you can even talk to Tom Sura, if you remember that name from the World Series from 2015. I think he finished like 14th or 15th.
Right.
And he's from Girard, and he plays in these tournaments quite often, and is one of the leaders of the group, I should say, that in the Northeast Ohio here who plays these tournaments. And Tom plays a lot of the tournaments over in West Virginia and Pittsburgh and Cleveland and that. Even up to Erie. I know I've talked to him many times. He says, I get up in the morning. Sometimes I'll just take a drive out to Erie and play one of their tournaments and stuff like that. So Tom kind of lives that low grinder life and, looks for the opportunity to have a big cash again, at the World Series, maybe this coming summer. So we'll wait and see how he does. But he's an interesting guy.
Maybe before he heads to Chicago, Mitch Trubinsky might show up right before he
there you go.
Before he heads to Chicago. Maybe Charlie Fry is going to show up, another Ohio boy.
There's throwing the names back. Yeah, we'll get into that. By the way, Eric, you might as well talk about this. Let's get into this since we're talking a little football there. You're a Cleveland Browns fan.
I am sadly not a fan. I am a diehard Cleveland Brown fan. It is.
How did that become?
When I was really young, it sort of happened with hockey as well, and a bit with soccer as well. In hockey, being French Canadian, everyone was a Montreal Canadiens fan, and I just liked to be different when I was a kid. I would challenge. I remember a kids show that everyone would watch. I would watch the other one just because that's who I was back then. So I became a Toronto Maple Leafs fan instead of being a Habs fan. And I guess, again, years of misery as a Leafs fan. So it makes sense that I picked the Browns. But in Ottawa, where I live, basically we had the Bills. And when the Bills were blacked out because they couldn't sell out, we'd have the Browns. And everyone was a Buffalo Bills fan. And we're talking like early years Jim Kelly and probably just a bit pre-Jim Kelly.
80s.
Right. Yeah. So before the Bills were the big thing and just choking and losing every Super Bowl, everyone was a Bills fan even at that point. And I just loved Cleveland, the old Municipal Stadium. And I would, I'm a Jays fan, so I would watch, Jays play the Indians in September, and it was cold and disgusting and muddy, and that's what I really loved about the Browns as well. And I wanted to be different and choose something else than the Bills, so I chose the Browns. And things looked great when I was really young. We had some great years there with Bernie Kosar, but unfortunately it's been pretty miserable since. So but a really huge diehard fan. It's one of my three teams. I'm a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm a fan of the Cleveland Browns, a fan of the Arsenal soccer club back in England. I guess a bit of a Jays fan. I was a Jays and an Expos guy, so I really could not pick a team when it comes to Canada. We only had two teams back then, so I would and it was great because I'd get the French broadcasts, I'd get the Expos, and the English side, I'd get the Jays.
And there were different leagues back then. They didn't even play against each other.
They didn't play each other. That's right. I wasn't forced to make a decision. So
I
have
no problem with that.
Yeah, huge Browns guy. I've been to Cleveland, I believe it's 8 times to see the Browns.
Oh, okay.
And it's about a 7 to 8 hour drive from Ottawa. Now that I'm in Vegas, I'm hoping to take my wife, my new wife. Hopefully she'll.
Yes, congratulations, by the way.
So hopefully she'll enjoy, leaving Vegas for the nice Cleveland weather. But you'll be happy, Tim, to know that I used to go just with one friend, and then I went with 2 friends, and then the last few years we were 8, 9 people going to see the Browns, and some weren't Browns fans, but they totally enjoy the experience every time, and they want to go back. So for those people that have not seen the Browns, it is one of the legendary teams, and it's so exciting. The tailgate is fun, but also within the stadium for me. And I've had some crazy games. I've had games where we were driving through the worst snowstorm in Pennsylvania history, trying to get our butts to Cleveland, where it was so cold that the beer taps were frozen. And then the year after, we were there in December, and it was balmy. It was like in the 80s, seeing, I think it was Charlie Fry's debut, actually, against the Dolphins.
Oh, okay.
So way back when. So, I just love the Browns. I love Cleveland Browns Stadium. I love that area as well. Just beautiful, with Jacobs Field, with the Hall of Fame. Just a really great setup. And I think it was one of the first, not to brag about, beautiful Cleveland, but it was one of the first resurgences of downtown. And, in Ottawa, the hockey arena is basically 40 minutes away from downtown. Okay. And now they're actually talking about building an arena right where the Parliament is, right where the water is, and you see that in Toronto and in Montreal. So it just makes sense. But I remember when Cleveland did that, I think that's amazing work. And just a huge fan of Cleveland, and really happy. I'm not a Cavs fan, but when the Cavs won last year, I really felt as a Clevelander, that 30 for 30 documentary was a rough one. So it was great that we could update that 30 for 30 with, adding the Cavs victory.
There's no doubt about that. A little Browns history here for you. For me, I was a Browns fan for a long time, and goes back to about 1980. With the Miracle, not Miracle, but the Cardiac Hits. Miracle Richfield was the Cavs back in the 70s. But I grew up here in Boardman, Ohio, and fortunate enough to lived on the same street as Bernie Kosar.
That's awesome.
And watched and caught passes and played backyard football and baseball with the Kosar family, and I was able to watch his progression. And it's like I always told everyone, I says, when he was in the backyard, you needed to play in the next level, whatever that was in the schools and stuff like that. When he was in high school, I knew he needed to be playing Division I football. And when he was at the University of Miami, I knew he needed to be in the NFL. And, and then to see him run and find a way to get to Cleveland back when you really couldn't choose your team. He kind of bypassed the draft and really took advantage of a loophole to get there. And of course, the Browns became one of the best teams in the league there for about a 6-7 year period from like 85 to about 91, when he was the main attraction in Cleveland. There's no doubt about it. So it was a nice experience for me growing up, and to watch that happen. And I was able to get some season tickets back in the day, and awesome. Even had front row dog pound at one time.
Oh God.
Yeah. Back about 1990 or so, it was about 4 of my friends. We got together and went up and got them. And what happened is we met some guy who says, I can get you tickets. I was like, all right, let's talk about it. And next thing I know, we were buying season tickets, and we were sitting front row in the dog pound. Unfortunately, first year we did that, I think they won 3 games or 4 games. So.
Yeah.
it was the end of Bud Carson's.
I see. Yeah.
Right at the Browns, but I had many times I spent weekends in the dog pound, anywhere I could get seats back in the glory day of the Browns. Unfortunately, we haven't had many of them. However, I think we're headed in the right way. As a stat guy, as an analytic guy that you are, tell me what's your thoughts of the Browns taking this approach to use more analytics to their drafting of players and ranking of their own players and around the league. It's not done in the NFL. It's done a lot in baseball. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's done in baseball. It's being done in hockey a lot. And to be fair, in my fantasy hockey league, I've now spun it in where I use advanced stats to select my players, and there's a few stats in particular that I love. So I think that in fantasy sports, it actually should be the norm, for most people. I love the way I used to manage my the junior hockey team in Rockland, my hometown, my actual hometown. That's the team that Brian Murray managed in '76 when we won the Junior A Centennial Cup. So maybe some history there. The year I was born, Rockland was Canadian champions in junior hockey. So way back when, and then Brian went on to now be the GM of the Ottawa Senators. So he's gone on to Washington and to Detroit and all that good stuff. And we were starting that. It was part of, some of the teams in bigger cities had money. So, we're talking about 16, 17, 18-year-olds. You're not supposed to pay them, and you don't pay them, but hey, you give a kid a $1,000 pair of skates, they'll probably go play for the big team in Ottawa, not your small town. So one of the ways we were starting to look at is advanced stats. Now, we didn't have, of course, the stats that are available to professional leagues. But I think for the Browns, I love this. And why not? Why not try something new? And I love the accumulation of picks. I think that's smart. I always look at there's some tendencies in the NFL, one thing called the draft value chart, which is something that I am obsessed with, just evaluating talent and looking at I now forget, oh God, who's that terrible quarterback we got this for a second rounder?
Oh, you're talking about Kaiser.
Also, yeah, Brock.
Or you're talking about a few drafts back where we kept screwing up the quarterback position.
No. I'm talking about Brock Osweiler that we got, and then they also gave us a second-round pick. So looking at that with the draft value chart, to me, that's a brilliant move, and that's
it was. I truly agree.
Yeah, and it's sad to say that it's fine to waste $17 million, but when there's a salary cap and stuff, it does make sense, and they'll get some luxury tax component to it. So I love that. I love that is being done. I think that's smart. I think it's a different way to see things. And in the NFL, unlike any other sports league in North America, the players you draft will play, and they'll be very, very valuable to you. The guy you're getting in the fourth round is still going to play on your offensive line. So, that's really key. The NFL draft is different than any others. In the NBA, you have 2 rounds, and it's hit or miss. In the NHL, they can go in the minors for 6-7 years, and you're not able to use them. There's a few exceptions. There's Sidney Crosby's, Austin Matthews, but for the most part in the NHL, you're drafting a player for the future, not for the now. Whereas the NFL, these players are valuable. So to me, if you're acquiring assets, and don't get me wrong, I would love to have Jimmy Garoppolo as my quarterback, but I wasn't willing to give Myles Garrett for him. I don't think that would have been a good move by the team. And to be honest, Tim, I think previous franchises would have done that, or would have broken the bank and moved up with their second first-round pick and moved up the fourth to grab someone that, I don't think he would have been, the player maybe to grab him a home just because of the name and because he might be the future Brett Favre, but he might not be the future Brett Favre. And I remember that Johnny Manziel draft where I was just thinking to myself, there's Teddy Bridgewater, waiting in the wings. There's Derek Carr waiting in the rings. And no. You can actually check my Twitter. I was a big Derek Carr guy before anyone got on. One of my friends at the WPT is from San Jose, and was a big San Jose State fan. So he kept on talking to me about, Derek Carr. We were in Montreal. We saw their bowl game. So I that's how I knew about Derek Carr. Before I didn't know about him and just knew that he was, another Carr's brother that the Texans drafted first overall. And, so that draft to me, it just frustrated me. But to be fair, when we drafted Johnny Manziel, part of me thought that was awesome as well, right? And we tend to poo on the Browns because they draft quarterbacks in the first round. One thing we should not forget is that for the most part, it is a late first-round pick, and they've already drafted. When we drafted Brady Quinn, we got Joe Thomas first overall. So, the Browns get pooed on for wasting first-round draft picks on quarterbacks. However, both of those times with Brady Quinn and with Johnny Manziel, they did get, don't get me wrong, they did terrible with Justin Gabriel. But, with the Joe Thomas one, he's a Hall of Famer, so that was a good move. And people actually thought they should have picked Johnny Manziel first overall. They still went with their gut and pick Joe Thomas. So, the Browns get a bit of a hard time, I find, from a lot of the analysts. And it's easy to do that on the Browns. But, I like what they're doing, and why not try to something new? What we were trying didn't work, and I think it's hard to maybe, get some of the free agents to come to Cleveland. It's not going to LA now that they have two teams. It's not going to New England where you're going to get the ball thrown to from Tom Brady. So that's pretty easy as a job. So I think trying something new is actually the way to go, and good on them, and really hope that Sashi Brown and the team can figure something out for us.
Yeah, it quite, you know, I kind of agree with you where they had nothing to lose. They had everything gained and nothing to lose by trying something new. And I give them credit for that, you know, and, you know, the NFL, you don't build a team overnight. We all know that.
Right.
And it takes 3-4 years, unfortunately. And you have to accumulate picks. And that's what the Browns have done. And the last 3 years, you know, last 2 or a year and a half, I should say, I think they've they put a plan in progress, and I think it has an opportunity to succeed. Like I've always said about anything, you got to have the opportunity to succeed and fail, but you have to let them have that opportunity. Right. Unfortunately, Cleveland, for about 6 to 8 year period from about 2005, after, you know, Butch Davis left this team up until now, they didn't give anybody in the front office nor on the field as a head coach an opportunity to really succeed. They definitely had an opportunity to fail, but they never had the opportunity to succeed. Bought into some of the people that they brought in. I think Phil Savage was probably the most knowledgeable one they had prior, but he only lasted like 2 or 3 seasons as GM. And, you know, he's the one who did draft Joe Thomas, you know.
Right.
You know, sometimes you're going to hit home runs, you know, and that's just the way it works. Sometimes you get aces in your hands, right?
Yeah. I really like the fact that they didn't necessarily waste a too high of a draft pick on a quarterback, knowing that the draft class next year looks to be absolutely ridiculous with Sam Darnold at USC and the UCLA guy that I forget his name, but there's a few star quarterbacks maybe waiting in the wings. So let's see. And you know, who knows, maybe this Notre Dame kid is going to be the real deal. We'll just have to probably wait a bit to figure that out. But hey, we've got Brock Osweiler throwing the ball for us next year. So we're good to go. Don't forget,
he's good enough to back up. Yeah, exactly. That's right. He did win a championship. Can't take that away.
And I always tell people, by the way, when people tell me the Browns haven't won the Super Bowl in a long time, I always tell them that's untrue. We got one stolen from us in the 90s, so we're guessing the early 2000s. So let's never forget that Ray Lewis and company, that was supposed to be our team. So
yeah, it was.
And Ozzie Newsome is one of ours. So
yes, he is. You know, unfortunate what happened back in the mid 90s with the Browns, but we'll move on to more interesting stuff. Now, I was reading on your on the GPI website that Alex Dreyfus mentioned or announced that you're branching out into esports with the gaming player index. That's intriguing. I'm not a gamer myself. I know a lot of people who love playing those online games, and the growth of esports is huge, as you can see with Twitch and just what they've done with poker alone, you know, as a side project for them. But this is a big deal to try to rank these players, what they achieve on their own level of the gamings that they're playing.
Yeah, ultimately the goal is to rank them. I think the goal at first will be to have a melded database, because what we can see from gaming, and I'm not a gamer as well, but you know, stats are stats to me. So when I look at the opportunity there aren't exactly any websites that have every single game together. So what we're looking to do is to build that community so that players that do play a few different games, you know, can have their profiles merged. Now, what we have seen in research is most players play one game in particular and play it very well. So I think that's where we can get some different rankings eventually. But I think at first it's really to find the best way to merge all those results together and then see what we can do, because you know, that's something that is missing in the gaming world. And yeah, the gaming world is pretty amazing. I mean, compared to poker, poker is a tenth of what, not even, it's a hundredth of what gaming is. And I was at TwitchCon last year, I guess in November. I forget when that was now. But even at TwitchCon, it is amazing the people that are there. I felt old. I'll be honest, I felt old. But trying to learn from what they're doing. But the shows they put on, and they had the World Championship of Mario Kart. Like, think about that. Mario Kart had a World Championship, and there was 25,000 people watching that. So, you know, And then online, they had something on the Twitch platform, and 4 million people were watching that on their computers at home. So yeah, what they're doing is something that we'd like to be a part of. And I think in that vein that we're trying to merge into is something we can offer that's not necessarily there yet. So hopefully we'll be able to help out, to help them out and get that going with them.
That's quite interesting. There's no doubt about it. It's a huge a generational thing, I think, for those who are maybe under 35 and know a lot more about it, me being 50. I still remember just, the Atari games and, and the old 2600 and stuff like that. Yeah. But, hey, it's really interesting. And I think, even DFS has esports, and that will be a part of the platform, in a sense. I think it's something it's definitely here to stay, and it's an interesting opportunity for GPI, I guess I would call it, to branch out into something different other than poker. But let's talk about that for just a second. How did you get involved with Alex Dreyfus, and how did it all come about, being involved with the rankings in the GPI?
I used to, I first started, basically I had a 9-to-5 job. Actually, it was a 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. job. And I was just working, running an office space was what I was doing. Before then, I was a manager at Ticketmaster. I guess I was just a intent of
guy, right?
That's right, run-of-the-mill guy. I studied in radio broadcasting when I was younger, but it just couldn't find a niche that I liked. Sports radio wasn't around in my area back then. Had it been, I think I would have found that as something to do. I used to be the public address announcer in my local hockey games. I understood that wasn't going to be a way to pay the bills, so I had to find just a 9-to-5, and it was great. Actually, at Ticketmaster, I had a lot of fun. A lot of young, energetic people working there, and what they've done since I've left is quite amazing. And the billions of dollars they're now raking in, that wasn't around when I was there. I was there, I guess, pre-internet, when you think about that, before you could actually buy a ticket online. And we went through that time where websites would crash, and it was just horrific times. And now no one calls to buy a ticket, right? They just go online.
No, they go online with your app, right?
That's right, or your app. You're right.
We do it on our phone. It's amazing.
It's exactly what's happening now. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that was going to happen 20 years ago, but it's here now.
Many years ago, my brother, who was a computer guy, and I was a sports guy, and oh, okay, Chris, okay. He goes, no, you're going to have, this is, I'm talking about back early 80s, when computers were not common.
Right.
And he was like, they'll be in their house, and it'll run your this, and it'll run your TV, and someday you'll use it as a phone. I'm like, what, are you nuts? And here we are, you and I, talking via a video Skype or a video Google Hangout, I should say. And, I look at it, I shake my head, and I go, Chris, you knew everything back then, and I knew nothing.
Right.
And today, I can't imagine not walking around with a phone to get my latest updates and everything else going on, let alone using it to call someone. And it's amazing the world we live in, and how 15, 20 years can change. I mean, 2008, there was no such thing as a smartphone,
That's right.
And here we are today, and with everything that goes on. So, wow, I tell you what, I could go on and on and on about a lot of different things with you, and it's been a lot of fun. And I hope to do this again here with you in the future, Eric. And I want to appreciate you taking this time to spend with me and working with me as we took a couple strikes before we hit a home run here.
Yeah. Speaking of technology, right?
Exactly, a little technology glitch. But you know what? I really do appreciate you taking the time and doing this, and being my first guest on my one-on-one podcast here on Radio MVP. And just a little plug, please go to our website. I'm very proud of it, radiomvp.com. And you can find us on Facebook at Radio MVP Pod. Believe it or not, someone stole my Radio MVP monologue on that. But hey, it happens.
Yeah.
I don't know, some DJ got it. I'm like, what the heck do you need it for? But this is the Valley's most valuable podcast, as I like to say, here in the Mahoning Valley. And Eric, have a great time going out to Las Vegas. Best to you and your new bride.
Thank you.
And I look forward to hopefully contacting you maybe after the World Series, and we can discuss more about what the GPI looks like, and we'll get into some of the players and stuff like that. I was just more wanted a kind of a round discussion about a little of everything, more about Eric and more about what you do versus talking about the different poker players and their rankings.
Sounds good. We'll do it again anytime you want. I'm there for you, Tim. Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right. That is Eric Danis, as we tie here on Radio MVP. My thanks to Eric. My thanks to you for listening and maybe viewing. We're going to see if we're going to post this here on my.
Come on. I even showered for this, Tim. Come on.
Don't worry. I didn't either. I still got my car parts. So here's a little plug for my guys that work car parts warehouse where I drive around all day long delivering auto parts. So, hey, you never know. But I'll tell you what, real quick. If you like wine in the area, and I'm talking about the guys who are from Northeast Ohio and around the country here, life is complicated, but wine shouldn't be, and we made it easy. Join Direct Sellers Wine Club. Get monthly deliveries directly to your door. Discover new selections each month, and if you like those selections, you can buy it at the club price, and you can actually build a business doing this if you would like. You can find more information if you go to our Facebook page and click Shop Now. It'll take you to the website, and you can get your wine there. Some great opportunities, and it's an opportunity for everyone to get involved and maybe just have some wine and enjoy the summer that's coming.
Yeah, you get the French guy on you to talk wine. I get it.
Eric, thanks again, my friend.
Thanks.
I will. I look forward to talking to you again, and have a great night.
You bet.